What is up, everyone? Welcome to a new episode of Once a Project Podcast, brought to you by Brandon Laura, your host. Joining me is my co-host,
Jackie.
and joining us is a very special guest. Thank you for being here, first of all.
No problem.
Present yourself, bro.
So, Brandon Quinton, serial entrepreneur. We'll just say that.
Serial entrepreneur. Where does that phrase come from? I've never heard anyone call themselves serial entrepreneur. I've heard, I'm an entrepreneur or I'm into entrepreneurship, but never serial entrepreneur.
So I think someone else coined the phrase long before I did,
Okay.
but my wife is super into the whole like serial killers, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So, serial entrepreneur.
There you go. Where does this start from, man? I got in contact with you a couple weeks ago, maybe a month now or so.
I think it's a little over a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a conversation over the phone, which was super dope, super great. You see those sticky notes right there? All those are notes that I took from that call.
Nice.
So I have them right there, and so yeah, it's just super great phone call, and then we've just kind of been on each other's. Well, I've been seeing your page and whatnot, like as you post and whatnot. So just staying up with you, staying up to date. So where does it start from? Is my question.
Starts with ADHD.
Okay.
That's like the beginning.
Yeah.
Because ADHD is something I've lived with my entire life, and I quit medicating in like middle school because of the stigma of being the kid taking medication, you know. And part of that whole ADHD process is always chasing the shiny objects, right? Like, ooh, squirrel. Yep. So with my study that I've done, because I've done a lot of like psychology-based studies, gone to school, the things that I did enjoy were psychology-based. And from all that psychology and learning about ADHD and why people do things, I've learned that the ADHD process is just like a dopamine deficiency, and what you're doing when you focus on new objects is you're just bringing your dopamine levels back up.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're born with less dopamine in the brain, and the way you can get your dopamine quote unquote high is by paying attention to the shiny things and new objects. You know, squirrel, like you mentioned. Do you think that's when you're born with that, right? I have a brother who has ADHD, but for me, it's always been weird to see the levels of ADHD.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think being born with that causes an effect with how you have a perception of the world, of school, let's say, of society?
Perception, not really, but your ability to like take it in and understand it is completely different.
Gotcha.
I do fully believe that. So like school, we're going to go down a rabbit hole here, okay?
That's fine. That's
so
what we're doing it for.
School was made to make workers because the economy can't thrive unless like 80% of the economy is a workforce.
Yeah.
So how do you get a workforce trained to be a workforce? Through public school system.
Gotcha.
Because if it was an independent school system, like charter schools, et cetera, right, they can teach their own curriculum, which is going to mold those people to be different from what the economy needs. Whereas a public school system, they can now teach what they want to who they want and mold these people to do the same thing to feed the economy.
Gotcha.
Which is good and bad.
Yeah.
Like,
and I've heard that before where I was in the business, right, who talked a lot about that, where it was, school is, if you want to be a lawyer, doctor, those type of, that type of educated, that's fine. Like, go ahead, but if you're trying more so on the entrepreneur side, trying to start a business, trying to create something for yourself, school is good in the sense of your networking possibilities, right? Where who you can meet, who you can click with. But as far as the teaching side of it, that's where it has a little bit of a downfall compared to the times that we're in right now. And I heard this about school. I don't know if you heard this about school. The reason why school was created, I don't know how true this is, but it was because back then when it was a Parisian Prussian, Prussin, something like that. Well, that civilization back then started school because their soldiers.
Oh, the
wouldn't-
Prussians.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
they wouldn't fight, so they would go into wars. Their soldiers, they would just give them a stick, whatever, go fight. Well, they would piss their pants, come back running. So the way they were able to get them to fight was through putting them through school and teaching them this is what this country did to us. This is why we have laws. This is why we do this. Now when they go fight, it was like a propaganda machine. And now when they go fight, now they're like with that rage inside, because we the same curriculum has been taught in school since you were probably in school and when I was in school, where we went to war with this country and this is the United States of America. Came
like
out of Britain.
Russia is communist, but they're not actually communist.
Exactly. Or China's this and that. So from a young age, you're being brought up with all that propaganda in a sense, right? Where was I going with that? I don't know, but that's just a cool point about not podcasting school. So you grew up with ADHD. When did you notice you had ADHD?
I think my parent or my mom, I guess, noticed. I didn't change life for me, really.
Yeah.
I just have always kind of lived my life, how I live my life, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I can look back now, and now that I'm like more educated on all the different aspects, like hyperfixation, right? That's a thing with ADHD specifically. And that in my relationships, like how I hyperfixated on girlfriends in high school and how that was like creepy, right?
Yeah.
That was just my ADHD, but me not knowing, like, hey, this is my ADHD. Maybe, being aware of that, I can back off. I need to.
Gotcha.
It wasn't what I knew at the time, so obviously it
and
was
what's
just
hyperfixation, just to be clear?
So hyperfixation is when that shiny object, right?
Okay,
It's providing dopamine. So when you hyperfixate on that new dopamine fix, it keeps providing that dopamine until eventually it wears off and you're like done with it and you're bored and you move to the next thing.
Gotcha.
So a good example for many ADHD people is we hear a song we really like and it goes on repeat. Repeat,
Gotcha.
like 100 times. You listen to the same song all day. Other people are annoyed, like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Why? Why are you doing this? It's good. And then like a week later, you're like, man, I don't like this song anymore. Let's find a new one. That's hyperfixation.
Oh, gotcha.
Because it's that dopamine.
So with the girlfriend, in that example, it would be like you're super close with the girlfriend, right? I guess, would needy be a word where you're just super there?
Yeah, like needy, clingy.
Until the point where you're like, I'm bored. Or like, I'm just over this person.
Yeah.
And then you move on.
And generally, ADHD people don't even hit the I'm bored phase with it because you were so clingy and creepy, right? Yeah. That it's like, hey,
like chill. We're leaving. This is done.
You're in the friend zone now. We're gonna move on. Yeah.
Oh man, that would suck. Imagine. I mean, did you go through that?
Oh, dude, I went through it so hard, so many times. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was listening to a podcast. Shout out to M Podcast Maribel.
Yeah.
And I was listening to your episode of, and you were talking about how you went to prison or jail. Was it prison or jail? Both?
Yeah.
When you were in there, obviously the prison system is very structured, good or bad, right? Depending on how the prisoner takes it, I guess. But I know that they have a very rigid system, right? You wake up at this time. You eat at this time. You go outside at this time. Is that? Am I off on that a little bit?
Kind of.
Okay.
Honestly, you would think that like the guards and the process rules all. No, like the prisoners have their own system, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
Politics, everything comes into play. Honestly, that's part of the politics thing, being in Bonneville County and getting networked into the right people. When I did go to prison, they threw me into a gang unit, even though I was non-affiliated. And I knew a couple people in there, and that's really what like kept me in there and not getting beat up. Because I did have like my emo bangs, like clear down. And it's like when you're in the gang unit, it's either like you're bald or high and tight cut,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah.
it was like more or less the people that ran the prison system. CCA was who ran it before Idaho like took back over.
Yeah.
The ICC, Idaho Correction Facility, was run by CCA, and it was like the third most dangerous prison in the states.
Wow.
Because they fostered things like putting guys with emo hair into the gang unit to get them beat up, and then they bet on like how long this person's going to stay in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were the politics like in there? I mean, if I'm being honest, you're probably the second person I've talked that's gone to prison. The first person was yesterday, actually, and he kind of just mentioned it to me, almost in like in a proud way, you know, in a prideful way, which to each their own, right? But I want to know the inside. You know, you were in with the gang unit. What were their politics? You know, what did they agree with and disagree with, and like, you know,
so
just a little bit about
certain gangs that obviously are okay, like intermingling, like Serranos and I don't know,
shit.
most of the white boys,
Yeah.
like they can get along, AK whatever. But then like Norteños or like Bloods, like anything else that's outside of that area just is a no-go.
Gotcha.
So like there's the gang politics, but then there's this other like whole political system. Like, are you a snitch? Like, what's your paperwork look like? Do you have a crime that is
now
acceptable?
Yeah.
That would be the term, I guess.
Yeah, because I've heard that the first people that go bad in prison are like the pedophiles and the rapists and the child molesters and those dumbasses.
Yeah, so honor amongst thieves, I guess, would be like the term here. But yeah, if you snitched or like rolled over, or you were an informant, or you had any kind of sex crime, that's
a no-go.
Yeah, there's certain places in the prison system like where they put those people.
Yeah.
So that they don't get killed, because that's
what happens.
Gonna happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the gang unit that I was in, like JKL block, like 3 years before I was in there, they had a lawsuit against, and this is what eventually led to Idaho taking back over that contract, but they had a lawsuit against Idaho because they threw someone in who was a sex offender, and they just let everyone, he died, but they beat him like
to death.
They would beat him, and they were tired, and they'd leave, and then they'd come back and beat him some more, and the guards never did anything about it.
Oh, wow.
And it's, I don't know. I don't condone it necessarily because I'm not on board with that group of people, and that might just be my belief system, but that just was not a good situation for that individual.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, shit. I mean, I guess my mom and my family has always said a saying of like, whatever you do bad on earth, you'll pay before you leave earth, you know? And so anyways, moving on. How did you do with your ADHD in prison?
I hyperfixated on learning.
Okay.
That was like where my whole learning began, honestly.
Gotcha.
I really went into like a Taoism, like Eastern religion thing for a while, learning that, because I believe that religion is really spirituality. Like spirituality is going to get you closer to whatever, God, deity, whatever you believe, right? Nature. That's actually like getting close to your roots, your oneness of life.
Yeah.
Most people believe in like the law of nature, the law that we all are one because we all come from the same living planet, basically.
Yeah.
So the Zen thing made a lot more sense to me than like my LDS roots did.
Right. And your Zen, that's like, is that meditating?
No, so Zen is like you take your belief system, you take what you do, like the Japanese had a saying, it's called ikigai for Japanese. It's where all of these different circles of your life interlap, and right in the center where everything overlaps, that's your Zen, your ikigai, like your meaning of life.
Gotcha. So what's that for you now?
So part of the whole like founder's guide, which I've been working with you with, is if you know your who, your what, and your why, then in the middle of that, that's more or less your ikigai, your zen, your place of being. So for me, like one of my highest core values is creativity, because creativity, ADHD, like always being able to chase shiny objects. So that's my why, like being creative is my why. And then my what would be being an entrepreneur, right? So entrepreneurial stuff is fostered by my creativity. And then me, like who I am as an individual is my personality type. I've gone like the Myers-Briggs test way of figuring out your personality. So my personality is like an entertainer, talking to people, doing that. So I can find my overlap of being an entertainer, being an entrepreneur, and being creative, and that's my that's what feeds me.
Gotcha. And that's where you come up with Founder's Guide that you've been developing.
Yep.
So you started learning in prison, right? And you realize that your religion roots were not aligned with what you really believed, that you maybe hadn't uncovered until that point, right?
Yep.
When you started learning, what was like the first thing, whether it was spiritual or you know, intelligence or knowledge or whatnot, what was the first thing that clicked for you that you're like, that's where I want to kind of head more towards, you know? The little light, I guess you could call it, that interested you into pursuing that little road that eventually led you to where you are now.
So in prison, there's programs you can take that like reduce your sentence and whatever. They're supposed to help with recidivism.
Yeah.
And one of them is reprogramming, like reprogramming your core beliefs, basically your brain.
Yeah.
And when I started that course, it was like the psychology stuff started to click. And I was like, oh, well, this makes sense because psychologically, da-da-da-da-da. And so that took me down this like rabbit hole of I want to learn more about psychology. And so I started reading books about psychology, which eventually was like, well, some self-help things in this area of my life would be good. So let's start reading this book. And I started reading some of those like Taoism and Zen-centered books. And that really like fed my soul, because the creativity and the learning more about myself and who I am and why I do what I do and all that.
Right. Isn't that interesting? By the way, that's your water right there in the bottle right there that's open. That's mine. So maybe we could pass.
I'll drink this one.
I'll take a drink. Man, it's fun having you in here. You're very knowledgeable, and it's very deep. I can tell. So it's always fun to talk to someone who's very deep, especially with what they do and how they started. So it's interesting though, right? How you start to put things together and they click, and then you're like, that would make sense why I said this. It goes even down to that little small detail of why maybe you screamed and then said something rude to someone, or why, I mean, you know, you felt this urge of happiness when this went right, because it's been months leading up to that one decision that you hoped that went well, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, or even
so that's very fulfilling. Like my crimes, right, that led to the jail and the prison. I can look back and only recently discovered this with the psychology ADHD thing, that every single one of the things that I did was ADHD based.
Wow.
100%.
Yeah.
So it was all just a lack of
understanding,
mental health. Yeah, mental health awareness.
Yeah. When you were young and you were like, you know, maybe in your teenage years, and you knew that you were kind of in this, you know, rap of ADHD, and you were doing all these things leading up to your prison time, did you ever think about going and you know, seeing a therapist or something like that?
No. Dudes don't do that. Dudes,
Yeah.
we bottle the shit up, and then it just kind of manifests in different parts of our lives, right?
Yeah.
So no, that was absolutely never even part of a thought.
And your family never, kind of poked at you with it?
No.
Wow. Yeah, so I ask because I don't think I have ADHD myself, although maybe I do a little bit, I quote unquote self-diagnose myself with it. But you read anything on Google, you're self-diagnosed with freaking any disease there's out there or any freaking powers,
Hopped on WebMD the other day, and I have like liver
Yeah.
cirrhosis or some crazy thing. Yeah.
So, but
Turns out I had a cold.
yeah, what was I gonna say with that? But I was going, I was in a very depressed state when I was younger, and I didn't think about therapy either. I was like, therapy's for the crazy people. Like, that's not me. Like, I'm chilling, I'm going to school, I'm working. But little did I know that I was carrying such a big bag of just emotions. And my mom is the one who poked me with the therapy. And so that's where, for me, the clicking part that you went through with learning in prison started.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of interesting. So you started learning, and then you get out of prison, and you're like reprogrammed, right? You would say. What was your first thing you did like once you got out and you're reprogrammed? What was like that goal for you?
Man. So I've even changed quite a bit because it's easy to reprogram when you're like on your own, right?
Yeah.
Because no one really around. I had a couple people that I talked to about the Zen thing, and it made sense. But no one in there really is all about like, let's change.
Right.
Like, you can still get drugs.
Yeah.
They're still doing drugs in there. We're playing Xbox. Like, prison's not that bad.
Yeah.
As far as your life, your ability to do things. But when you get outside, and I was reprogrammed myself, worked through all that, and everything was like new and shiny. And the car ride from Boise to Idaho Falls, it's like the worst drive ever, right?
Right.
It's so boring.
It's very long.
The whole road
nothing.
back, I wasn't bored at all. I was just like, dude, this is so awesome. I'm out, and look at all the pretty stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, can we stop at Shoshone Falls? Like, and then it only took like maybe a year, and like a lot of that kind of like newness wore off, right?
Gotcha.
And so you're getting back into the like being in society, but something I never got over was crowds. Because like prison, you go to eat lunch and there's almost a fight every single day.
Yeah.
So you're like eating through mace and then running out, whatever. So you're desensitized to violence, but also now your head's on a swivel all the time. So I can't go to the fair without like a huge peak in my anxiety.
Really?
So
what do you do then? No, do you take any type of like herbal medicine or something? Oh, you don't go? You're like,
So my wife has anxiety, and I'm generally not anxious.
Right.
But when we went to the fair, like the first time I decided, okay, I think I can do the fair.
Yeah.
We were married. We went with her and her family, and I
freaked out.
Yeah, it was not good. It was, yeah.
I get like that too, but I think it's weird because I think a lot of what we're talking about is psychological, right? And I think a lot of it for me is more psychological of the fear of people seeing me, if that makes sense. Like of people like noticing me in a sense, because when I was younger, what I needed was validation, and so maybe I look for that when I go to the fair and people see me. I hope that they would validate me for being who I am now or for what I've accomplished in a sense.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So your personality type, more than likely, there's on the Myers-Briggs test, it's like sensing versus feeling, like judging versus intuitive, right? On that bottom, that last one, you're probably like on the judge side.
Yeah.
And so you feel like everyone else thinks just like you do and is judging you when you're anywhere, really.
Yeah.
And I'm more on the intuitive side, so I think that everybody else is intuitive and they should just know these things.
Gotcha.
Right? And there's like 16 different personalities, but it goes way like even deeper than the personalities. Is like you can get into your core strengths and your core values, and those are what takes someone from like, hey, you're this personality type to you're this individual.
Gotcha.
This is who you are.
Interesting. Yeah, because that's how I feel when I go to especially like the fair, just like Walmart and those places, like I don't care, you know. But bigger things like
You don't go watch the Walmartians and judge.
nah, but more so like I'm talking like fair or I would say like big parties,
Like larger events.
yeah, larger events for sure. And it's more so when I know that there's gonna be people there that know me. Strangers, I don't really care too much, like whatever. But it's more so, okay, I know that this person is for sure gonna be here, and that's where like the anxiety starts to kick in. You know, of, oh shit, what if they see me, or you know this or that, you know, whatever. But that's my anxiety that I go through with the fair. So that's the only reason why I don't like going to the fair. The other thing is the fucking lines. They take so long. Like, dude.
Yeah, I'm just like theme parks. I told you when I came in that we went to Disney like a year ago.
Yeah.
That's all cool and dandy for me. I don't really have a hard time at theme parks because I know everyone's there to like have fun.
Yeah.
They're there to go see Pinocchio or whatever.
Yeah.
They're not there to like shoot you or something.
Right.
You know? Where at the fair it's like, oh, they just let any riffraff up in here.
Right. They let anyone, and then like
there's no freaking bag
Yeah.
checks. It's Idaho, so it is
and
what
so
it is.
small too. You know that. I mean, like if you go to high school with 50 people, you're gonna see those 50 people for the next 10 years of your life. If you're in Idaho, you know?
They say 65% of people don't move within a 50-mile radius of where they grew up.
That's terrible.
65%.
I'm trying to move like 300 miles away from
I'm
Idaho.
trying to move like 1,800 miles
Well,
away.
really?
Like
Where are you
I'm
trying to
still
go?
here, but we're planning to move to Virginia.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's dope.
A couple of years.
Yeah, you got the goal set already, and that's what you want to do.
Yep. In
Nice.
my new Porsche 718 that I just designed like a couple weeks ago on the
There
Porsche
you go.
website. If you haven't done that yet, do it. It's so sick.
It's nice. I went to the Jaguar Land Rover dealership in Salt Lake, and I was like looking through their customization, like seats and color, and I was like, this is sick. I can't wait to come in here and just buy one of these cash, and then design it the way I want to design it with everything I want in there.
Yeah, my buddy Chris just went to like the actual Porsche experience in Georgia
Gotcha.
like a week ago and
Whoa.
posted videos, and I was like, oh, I'm so jealous right now.
Yeah.
He wasn't picking up, he was just driving, but
Gotcha.
that is like on my package of the car was I want to pick it up. But I want to pick it up in Germany because they'll do like it's free. If you buy the car and you custom build the car, you can pick it up in Georgia. It's free. You can go on their track, whatever, or you can go clear to Germany and then they'll ship it here and it's all free.
Oh, wow.
So if you go to Germany, you can go pick it up at the factory, do the thing for a day, and then take it for a month and just tour Germany with your new car. And then take it to any of like, I think they had like 15 ports that you could drop your car off. They'll shuttle you to the airport and then your car will ship.
Oh, wow. That's cool. That's when you do that.
Yeah.
So you start learning, and then when was it? Because you started a couple businesses, is that right?
Oh, I've had so many at this point.
So what was the first business you started?
So when I was in prison,
Yeah.
I started this journal, and it was like, these are business ideas. And I just was like slamming through business ideas. I had like a dog spa that was going to be like a rehabilitative health center for dogs that were like too fat or maybe lost a leg. But also we were going to have all these health foods, and we were going to have a grooming, like went on the deep end while I was there. So when I got out, I got back into construction because family's been doing construction. I've been involved in construction since I was 7. So last year was the last year I finally did it. If you take like the bits and pieces of jail time and stuff, I did construction for 23 years.
Whoa. It's a long time.
So I got back into that, and then I actually started like 1, 2, 3 construction businesses while I was doing that. I had one that was like custom furniture. I had one where I was like a contractor. And then I had another one that was like my very first one I did that I don't even know. I didn't have a vision. I was just like, let's start a business. Didn't do much with it. I think I made like 2 cornhole boards.
What was the most? What's been the most successful business you've had? It doesn't-
Elemental covers.
Elemental covers?
Yes.
What's that?
So I got into jet skiing
Okay.
in 2018. Yes.
Okay.
So almost exactly a year ago, or not a year ago, 5 years ago, me and my brother went on a 4-wheeler ride at the sand dunes, and I went into a witch's eye and had a stick go like through my scrotum up into my stomach.
What the heck?
And it missed like my femoral artery by 2 millimeters. It missed, like weaved in between all my intestines, bruised my kidney.
Oh,
Didn't do any actual damage besides just like bruising things.
wow.
But I had to go in for surgery. Right after, I had 2 other friends die like 6 months before doing also. Like one was doing snowmobiling, Adam Anderson, the Adam Anderson Avalanche Project. He was one, and then the other one, he just went in for like a surgery to remove a benign tumor, and they cauterized the wrong arteries. So
Yeah.
that all happened, and then that happened, and I was like, okay, I'm done with the 4-wheelers. I'm not going sand dunes anymore. Like 6 months later, I was going crazy and bought a jet ski and got into jet skis, got into really heavy as shiny object, ADHD.
Yeah.
So I got into aftermarket jet skis to start doing backflips and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there was no covers like to protect these things, like $15,000 to $60,000 machines with no cover to protect it.
Okay.
So I designed a cover, and then I've continued to design covers. And this is before I really had any knowledgeable like business. Like I didn't actually start going to any kind of business school until like this last year.
Gotcha.
Not having anything to do with work. Like
Yeah.
I've had a lot more free time being a stay-at-home dad. So I put a bunch of money into like, I got Google certified for digital marketing. I went to Harvard Business School, like the online Harvard Business School, and did a couple classes there for certifications.
Nice.
And that's taught me a lot. But even before then, like last year was zero of that information, just kind of blindly feeling for things. I did 6 figures.
Wow.
It was like 140 or something last year
Only on the covers?
on the covers.
And you sold those, I'm assuming, separately
Yeah.
online, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Why did you leave that business, or are you still doing that business?
Still doing it.
There
yeah.
you go. Yeah.
Yep. Changed business model this year to make it more in line with me, what fills my cup. So
Yeah.
now it's like a schedule-based program instead of like before people could order at any point in time, and I would get a huge influx. Like it would just come in waves, and when it did, I'd end up behind. I'd have like 30 people order a cover this week, and then 10 people next week, and then 10 people, and then I'm like 4 months out.
Wow. Okay.
And stressed
Yeah.
because these guys are like, oh, I bought it. Where's it at? 7 to 10 days. Like,
Yeah.
you bought it when 30 other people bought it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I changed that business model to work more for me. So I'm not stressed now, because now I'm like, I schedule 2 covers a day, and that's it. That's like 4 hours of my day. And the rest of the day, I can do stay-at-home dad stuff. I can do the Founder's Guide stuff.
Yeah.
I have freedom in my life.
Yeah. Nice. What's the plan with that business? Because I know, so the Founder's Guide, just for the people that don't know, that's, from what I've heard, is like a website that you can order like a planner type of book. What's the Founder's Guide?
It's going to be many things, but originally what it is I am helping founders to create more meaningful and fulfilled lives.
Okay.
Like the whole thing with elemental covers where it was stressing me and I just built myself another job.
Yeah.
I'm teaching people how to build businesses that aren't just another job. It's going to
Gotcha.
fill your cup, and it's
Yeah.
all psychology based.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Huh. So so with your elemental covers business, how do you plan to upscale that, or do you plan to, what's your plan with that? Is it upscaling and then selling, or is it upscaling and then, kind of taking yourself out of the equation, but bringing people in that can take care of,
So technically the new program caps my growth, right?
Okay.
Because I'm only doing 2 covers a day, Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
That only allows me $300,000 a year,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
But that's just me doing it.
Right.
But I'm the creative type, so is doing the same monotonous, like sewing covers,
Right.
my gig? It's
Yeah.
not. So I'm going to bring someone in and say, like taking the founder's guide stuff I know and taking personalities, I can hire someone who has the right personality to come in and do what I need done so that I can just do the creative stuff.
Gotcha.
I can do the marketing and
Yeah.
kind of run that. But yeah, eventually my plan with the elemental thing is just to step out of it or sell it for multi-millions at some point.
Yeah, I mean, that would probably be the ideal, unless you really want to upscale it and stay in, which in a sense, that's cool too, you know? I think that there's value behind staying the owner of your business, you know?
Well, you can stay an owner and like a shareholder, right?
Right,
So how you structure your business is all going to depend on how far you can go.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting to like be hands-on all the time and the owner, you're only going to get so far because you only have this much knowledge.
Right.
So when you realize like, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, I have this much knowledge, should I actually be a CEO of a multi-million-dollar company?
Right.
No. But if my company is a multi-million-dollar company, I can hire someone with this much knowledge who is the right person for that job.
Right.
So now you're replacing yourself with the right people, and then you're still able to like plug yourself in and stay involved without limiting your business.
How important do you think it is to recognize that in your business? Because I've recognized that with this project, right? Where I'm like, these are my strengths. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm not so good at, but I'm doing right now because that's what I have. That's what I can do.
Growth.
It's growth. But once I reach to a certain level, I'm for sure going to bring someone in that can deal with this, that is more to their personality, more to their, persona. How important do you think that is to realize? Because I think that there's a lot of people who are very egocentric, I would say, or
most
very,
entrepreneurs are like ego driven,
or maybe ignorant. I don't know if that would be like the right term
uneducated.
to use, or uneducated.
Yeah.
To saying, okay, my cream or my good is this. This is not what I'm so good at.
Yeah.
So how important do you think that is to realize that?
That should be like the first thing that you look at.
Yeah.
Before you even build the business. And that's what the Founder's Guide is about. It's like, so when I do have the site up, you'll be able to hop on. You can take a brand assessment that's going to give you at 8 different levels. Like it starts with your vision, knowing what you want to do with your brand. And then it goes through your tribe, like who you're serving. And then the funnel process, added value, it goes through all that and assesses how well you actually know all of those things. And it gives you guiding points for what you can do to improve yourself there.
Yeah.
And then we go from there and we'll do a discovery call and say, okay, so this is how you scored. Let's do a personality profile with you. Right. And then I have a program that I use that other companies like Coca-Cola, like it was pretty expensive. It was like $6,000 a year, some stupid thing. But it assesses your personality profile, your strengths, your weaknesses. And when you know those things, you know your core values and your personal vision. Yeah. Your personal vision needs to be in alignment with your business.
Yes.
If they're not in alignment, and this is pulling you this way, you're not in alignment with your vision. You're not going to succeed this or this.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that about core values and kind of how important that plays into starting a business, building the business, and then being successful at the business. Because it's not just building or starting one and then building it. At some point, you're going to realize whether it's successful or not, and that's when you decide to move on or what's going on to fix. But I remember when I was 16, I sat down with a good friend of mine who's still a friend of mine. He said he's the one who introduced me to this multi-level marketing business, right? And it was he asked me a series of questions in the beginning. He's like, "This, why do you want to do this or whatnot?" But the first thing he said to me, he's like, "Brandon, what are your core values?" And I'm like, "Core values, And
What's
at
that?
first, at 16, dude, I was like, I don't know. I mean, I want to have a good life. I don't want to worry about money. He's like, no. He's like, those are the things that you want in life that, yes, they motivate you and, the nice cars and whatnot. but what do you care for? Like, what do you actually care for in your life right now? And that's when I started saying, okay, well, my family, the health of my family, my personal health, mental health. And he's like, okay, those right there, that's your core values. That's what you care and need to function. You know, you need your mental health because if you're not good, then you're not going to be doing good. But I don't think a lot of people see that. And I think that that's because of maybe how society raises you up in a sense, right? Where in school, you know, there's no teachings about emotions or core values, and much less in a household, unless you're a person like I'm imagining yourself, you know, who you talk to your kids about this probably, or who, you know, I'm gonna be a dad here soon, who I'm gonna for sure be like, hey, dude, little one, this is what emotions are. This is what core values are and whatnot. So I think that's something that people don't see a lot with starting a business, and then they find themselves, you know, working at a job 20 years later, hating themselves for not fulfilling their dreams or not going out and trying it. But what they don't realize is that you missed the step of why you do what you do, you know?
Well, there's a story. So there's this thing called the Goldman's dilemma. It was something they did in the 90s.
Okay.
And what it was they took high performing athletes. They had team athletes and they had individual athletes.
Okay.
And they said, hey, if I can guarantee you a gold medal at the highest level, will you be willing to die in 5 years?
If I received a gold medal within 5 years, would I be willing to die?
Yes. And the team players, right? Like 2% of them said yes. It was a really small number because they know that they can't sacrifice the team to get a gold. Like the team has to work together. They have a common goal, common vision.
Yeah.
Solo though, like these are your tennis players, your swimmers, your
wrestlers,
Olympic athletes. Like over 50% of them said yes.
Wow.
Because for them, their vision for their life is all about gold. So are they willing to die within 5 years? Yes, because they fulfilled their life's vision. That's their whole life's purpose, is just to get a gold. That's what they've centered their life on. Now, you can see this in reality with like Michael Phelps, for instance. He achieved the highest level he possibly could.
Right.
And immediately after, for like 2 years, what did he do? He went into like a massive depressive state.
Right.
Started smoking weed, lost all his contracts, just blew
really?
his life apart.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Because depression. There was a tennis player, same thing.
Yeah.
Because they've achieved their vision, now they have nothing else to live for.
Yeah, and that's hard, right? Because I can imagine and seeing a little kid, maybe not a little kid, but yeah, maybe a little kid, 7 years old, let's say, being installed into them. Okay, you like this sport, let's say wrestling, right? You like wrestling. You're going to wrestling practice every day, Monday through Friday. You wrestle on Sundays and Saturdays and whatnot. And your whole life becomes that from 7 years old up till your teenage years. And you start to think, okay, my next move is to be the best wrestler I can in my region so that I can go to college, a good college like the Iowa Hawks college or Ohio State or whatnot.
Or Alabama if you're a football player.
Or Alabama. Yeah, exactly. Those big colleges, right? And then you fight your butt off to achieve this goal. You go into that college, and then your next goal is, okay, now I want to win a NCAA championship, right? I want to be the best. You accomplish that. You get out of college, and then it's like, okay, now what? With wrestlers, it's a bit interesting because after that, through all that discipline, they're able to start businesses or be like the best CEOs or those type of people because they're so focus driven and so disciplined in one thing, you know? But some people, they don't do that.
Your personality type is going to play into it.
You know?
But with your business, it's the same thing. If you don't have your own personal vision of where you want to be, like what you want to do with your life, then your business vision is also going to be lacking. And if you don't have business vision and personal vision, then you're just kind of walking around in the dark.
And that's very scary, right? I mean, that's something that I think people realize later on in life, which is, I mean, the founder of KFC started his business when he was like 80. But if you're not that person, then at that point, you molded your life to what your life is, and that's kind of it. There's no, unless your son or daughter does something with their life, then that's kind of how you
Yeah,
can get
a
out
lot
of
of
that.
people like choose to live their life's vision based on like a legacy, right?
Yeah,
So if I can leave a legacy behind, then I'm good. And that's like often that's putting the control of your happiness in your children's hands. And
right.
then not only that, but now there's that weight on your children.
Yeah.
You're putting all that onto them.
Yeah, and I actually talking about legacy. I was listening to a podcast the other day where I forget who it was, but he was talking about how he's like, yes, I'm gonna help my kids. He's a like pretty successful comedian. He's like, I'm gonna help my kids with, maybe securing them for college or giving them a good education. But best believe I'm gonna spend all my fucking money before I die because that's my money. I earned that money. I work my butt ass for that money. I do everything I do for this. So why would I leave it to my kids? And then what? I mean, I'm not going to enjoy my life. I'm not going to spend my money on a Porsche, like you said, or whatever. And I thought about that. I was like, yeah, that's very interesting because especially in the Hispanic culture, a lot of it is like, I'm building now something for you. And when I'm older, you will take over. And
like in Coco.
yeah,
There's the shoe
exactly.
tailors. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's just like that. And then I think about them like, yeah, dude, but you're not living. Like, yeah, I guess you have more money, you start a business and whatnot, but your whole driven focus is leaving it to your son or to your daughter. But what if they don't want that? What will you do then? Are you
Like Coco.
yeah? Is your vision gonna be crushed?
I
or
want to
what?
play guitar.
Yeah. Let me see. What do you think about? I don't know if you've noticed this, but I think now in this time of, there's more kids being entrepreneurs than there was 10, 20 years ago, I'd say. What do you think about that?
I think that all comes back to, we were talking about school earlier, right? So schools, yeah, like they built them to make a working class, but also like going to college was the thing because the colleges had all the books and that was how the information was shared back then. So if you wanted good education, you had to go to a college because they have all the books, they have all the information. Come internet era, Gen Z, Zoomers, whatever, right? Now, all that information is available. Like, you have to be way more careful because there's a lot of false information out there too.
Right.
But I can pick up and learn anything about ADHD that I want without having to go to college.
Right.
Like, I don't have to go be a specialty psychologist to know all the things about ADHD. There's like TikTokers, there's all sorts of these things. And that's why this new like modern era, there's a lot more entrepreneurial people because people have more information than they've ever had before.
Yeah.
And with that information, there's going to be a shift in mindset. And that shift in mindset is like you're seeing it affect the economy.
Yeah.
Because like the IRS is hiring hundreds of thousands of people to go out and be like, hey, you have a side hustle, give me all your fucking money.
Yeah.
Because they're losing people that are working full-time jobs.
Yeah. And I was talking about this in an episode that we filmed that was like, it's cool that there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there and there's more people wanting to be entrepreneurs. But I just think that some people are not built to be entrepreneurs, unfortunately. Because if everyone was an entrepreneur, then what would we be? I mean, I don't even know what this nation or what. Because right now we're what, like a capitalism nation, I'd say.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah, capitalist.
But I mean, if everyone was like a business owner, there would be no workers. And that's a problem. Because I think you need workers. But also, the fucked up part there is like the employers don't pay the workers what they deserve sometimes. And that's where like the little gray area is at, right? If you're a business owner, pay your workers
Like
what
take
they
care
deserve.
of your people. Yeah.
Especially the blue collar workers. Those guys, the ones who are dumping cement, building these buildings, those guys who come home at 6 p.m. with just their body beaten. Those guys need to be taken care of. I think more than almost. I mean, I don't know. That's just my belief, though. It's just those guys need to be paid well. Like they deserve to be paid well, because we don't have the robots yet to build a building.
Well, and when we
That'd be
do,
sick.
like Elon Musk has talked about, we'd have to, with AI taking over a bunch of different jobs, we're going to have like a living wage for everybody that's
Yeah.
just given out.
Which is the Andrew Yang was talking about this. He ran for the presidency, 2020, I think. He's talking about, what's it called? Something, basically you're getting paid a certain amount of money by the government, everyone, each month, and that's just to cover your bills.
Yeah,
Your,
just like a living wage, basically.
your living wage, right? Your food, your electricity, and apartment bill.
Yep.
Or house, whatever.
Which would be interesting to see because, like, New York, $1,800 does not get you very far for rent.
Yeah,
You're like living in a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
Or on the street for 1,800, but
yeah. What do you just to kind of end off here? What do you think about? We've talked about all this kind of like growth, right, and life change and becoming a better you, essentially. What do you think about people being true to what they say? Does that make sense? So what you speak, not you, right? Don't. I'm not directing the question towards you.
no, we're good.
But to what you speak or what someone speaks, to actually living that lifestyle. Because I know we had a conversation, right? And we talked about how I wanted to direct this podcast and whatnot. And I said, well, one of the things I want to touch on is like fitness and being healthy and whatnot. So for me to be able to talk on that, I need to be healthy myself and maybe not super athlete fit, but fit to where it's like, yeah, he works out, it's obviously, you can tell. But some people just kind of speak, but they don't, put the work behind. What do you think about that?
So one of the like Zen books that I read it's called The Four Agreements.
Okay.
And the first one was being impeccable with your word. So impeccable means like flawless, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just how you talk to others, it's how you talk to yourself. It's also like what you do,
Right.
like what you're saying, right? And being impeccable with your word means that every day you're not going to be 100%.
Correct.
But everything that you say, do, all that should be in alignment with your core beliefs, your core values, and that you're not dragging other people down. Because part of being impeccable, if you're being perfect with your words, you are not being negative with your words either.
Yeah.
So you're not saying like, oh, that fucking dumbass cut me off. Like, that's not impeccability. That's choosing to use poor words and bring other people down, even though they can't hear you, right? You are not being true to yourself or your values by speaking ill of other people.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's very...
or of yourself.
Yeah, that's very smart. I just like that a lot, man, because I see this sometimes, and it can be with anything, but I'm just going to use the topic of food, right? Let's say me and you go to the restaurant, right? And we're order our food, we're eating, we're going to have this conversation, we're having fun. The food gets there, you try it, right? And you ask me, do you like it? And I'm like, it could have been better. I mean, it's a little dry. At that point, in my brain, I'm thinking, I'm already like lowering the energy level between what me and you brought into this restaurant. Not only that, but I'm already, in a sense, programming my brain to think that this food is not as good as it is, maybe. And I see that, and I'm like, but you have the ability to go eat. Where's the grateful part of saying, okay, yes, it's dry, maybe it's a little bit too much salt or whatnot, but thank God, or whoever you believe in, thank God, in my case, thank God for at least allowing me to be here and eating this. Because there's people in Syria, there's people in Libya, there's people in, Afghanistan who wish they could eat a damn egg with some ketchup, right?
Even some of us with the price of eggs nowadays.
Exactly. So,
No, I think it's all about just bringing value to everything that you do.
Yeah, and that's where like the gratefulness comes in. I'm sure your Zen books probably talk about this, which I hope you recommend me some.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to read those. They talk about, you don't like something, but be grateful. Bring the grateful out of it, because the grateful will make you see the positive, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the food was bad. I didn't like it. But God, I'm grateful for being here, for being able to sit down and eat on a Saturday. And then now the rest of the day I can enjoy with a full tummy. Maybe the next food will be better, right? But I think a lot of people don't see that and don't realize that how powerful bring out that gratefulness is. What do you think about that?
Yeah. No, I think that just plays right back into adding value in everything that you do.
Yeah.
Bring some value and enrich your life and other people's lives. And if you're not doing that, then you're not actually bringing anything to the table.
Right. Last, camera's yours, bro. Last advice, things you want to mention. It's all you now.
All me. Ugh, no pressure, right?
No pressure.
Drink some water. Think on it for a second.
We have a lot of younger people listening to us, surprisingly.
Story time. Younger people, story time. Oh, Mike. Ooh, there we go. Okay. All right. So there's a story about a study they did with monkeys. So they took a bunch of monkeys and they put them in a room. And then they put a ladder in the room that they could use to get up to these fruits. And then they would put nasty, like, kibble bit food basically out for the monkeys to eat on the ground. If a monkey tried to climb up the ladder, they would spray it with water.
Okay.
Pretty soon, they'd put a new monkey into the habitat, and the monkeys that would get sprayed with water, if he tried to go up to get the good food, they'd go and pull his tail and like pull him down the ladder before he could get sprayed with water. Eventually, they removed all the original monkeys out that knew that water was the punishment, I guess we'll call it, right?
Yeah.
That water was the punishment if you touch the ladder. And every single new monkey that they introduced without the original monkeys knowing what the actual process was going to be gone, all the other monkeys still, like said, don't go to that ladder. And eventually none of the monkeys would even touch the ladder. Even the new ones that were introduced already knew not to touch the ladder.
Interesting.
So the purpose of the story really came to be, like, in psychology studies, is that the generational things that you're being taught, you're taking those and just assuming that that is still going to be the case. So, like, what your grandparents or your great-grandparents went through, and maybe they had a business that failed, or the Great Depression, right? Yeah. We're all in this huge, like, fear era because of 2009 and the Great Depression and a recession now. We're all just assuming that this is exactly what's going to happen, and so we're acting as if it is going to happen, and thereby reinforces the fact that it will happen. Be a different monkey. Right. Climb the ladder. See if you get sprayed, and if you do, it's water. Keep going.
Yeah, there you go. You have any questions for him, babe?
No, I don't.
Just why are my kids so loud?
Yeah, guys, I mean, I had a lot of fun, Brandon. Thank you for coming in, dude. This was super fun. I learned a lot for sure. It's cool, doing this because you learn from people, and it's sick. So thank you for coming in. I appreciate it a lot, though.
No problem, dude.
Yeah, hell yeah. Your Instagram bro, where can people find you?
So my Instagram is father.o.business. And my TikTok is dad_HD. So ADHD. I tried to hit the Instagram handle with it too, and they said, nah. So we stuck with the Father O Business on Instagram, dad_HD on TikTok.
Nice.
Just doing parent content and ADHD stuff.
There you go. And your website, what's your website that you're going to launch soon?
So the foundersguide.com.
Foundersguide.com.
Yep, that's
cool.
the one for the business. I've got Elemental Covers, which is elemental-covers.com if you're into jet skis. And I'm also launching Power Shine in July, which is a detailing product for power sports.
Oh, wow. There you go, guys.
Yeah, so serial entrepreneur.
There you go, guys. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Wednesday Project Podcast. Go check us out on Instagram, Brandon A. Lara, Jackie with 3 A's, CKIE _ the OAP official, YouTube, TikTok, Wednesday Project Podcast. And yeah, thank you all for tuning in. See you on the next one.
Go check it out.
That was sick, dude.